Hi, my name is Angel DiBenedetto, and I'm an Amherst graduate from 1983. What other year is there? I was asked by Chris to say hi to you, and I'm so bummed in a way that I can't make it to this conference. I really wanted to be there. First of all, to be back in that gymnasium, to be back in Amherst, to be back in that same place with some of the colleagues from my own training has got to be mind-boggling. But unfortunately, I have some commitments and obligations to stay home in Seattle this summer. Got a new training that's starting in October, and I've got to basically be home. So I hope you're having a wonderful time, and I'm sure you are. Anyway, I just want to introduce myself. What brought me to this work, it's kind of an interesting story in such that I went on a 2-year sabbatical. I traveled across the United States and I traveled to Europe. And coincidentally, everywhere I went, it was in the late 70s, I kept hearing about Moshe Feldenkrais. And it was really, actually, pretty amazing that everywhere I went, from coast to coast and then Europe, and I traveled, I think, in like 10 countries in Europe, I kept hearing about Moshe Feldenkrais. Well, I finally came back from my trip 2 years later. I had dinner with some friends who then said, well, what are you going to do right now that you're back? And I said, well, I keep hearing about Moshe Feldenkrais. I want to explore who this guy is. He sounds brilliant. He sounds like my kind of person, my kind of teacher. And the guy sitting on my left said, you know, there's a training starting in 2 weeks in Amherst, about 300 miles from here. And I was like, okay, you know, this is one of those, I could have had a V8 kind of moments. So I contacted Jerry Carson, and the rest is history. I walked into that room. I had no idea what the heck I was doing there. All I know is I saw people from all over the place, from all walks of life. I've never seen so many different modes of professions, and it was, you know, in that time, the way that I operated, I mean, I'd been around a lot of people, but there was something very interesting about the way the people were in this room. So I walked in there and did the best I can to introduce myself, and somewhere in the midst of the morning, Moshe walks in, and it was like, oh my God. It was like, oh my God. I don't know how I knew this, but it was like finally, I finally, something in the way he presented himself, some of the way his first words came to us, it just told me I am finally in the right place. I'm finally in the right place to learn and to grow. This is it. You know, it's like, this is it. So Moshe started talking about the work and about art and about how words are not so as important as so many other things. And he just sort of reached me. He reached me so deeply that from that moment on, I was hooked. I was 32 years old, and I knew that I had finally found someone to learn from. Because I had a slew of some really horrible teachers in my life. I've been actually traumatized by the teachers that I had in my schooling. And Moshe was the kindest. He just gave us the time. He gave us he gave us the space. The way he spoke to us, it wasn't coming from, you know, this authority thing. It just, the way he spoke to me opened up all sorts of channels of learning, all sorts of interests, all sorts of curiosities that I found myself growing from the moment I walked into that space, and I haven't stopped growing since. Here I am, 2011, and I'm still doing this work. I'm still loving it. I'm still growing from it. I'm still evolving, and the most joyous thing in my life is that I'm still being as creative, if not more so, than I ever have been in my life. I'm still enthusiastic about the work. I mean, I just love it. I mean, it's the best thing that ever happened to me in my whole entire life. I don't actually know, to be honest, where I would have been today had I not walked into that room. The relationships I would have formed, the learnings that I would have encountered in my life I would have been a completely different person. And of course, I mean, that's obvious, but I think that my life, in fact, I know that my life was greatly improved from exploring this work called the Feldenkrais method. So when I graduated, I was still curious. I started doing a little class in New York. I started having practice with 2 or 3 people a week. I loved the fact that I could now take this kind of understanding of the work and start bringing it to other people. I really enjoyed the fact that I went from my own internal learning, my own personal learning, and then began to share it with others. And from that point on, seeing lights going on with people, seeing people tapping into their own individuality, their own self-worth, breaking old patterns of self-images that were, that they were held hostage into these boxes of self-image for years, seeing them break through, seeing them grow, seeing them develop, to me was like, wow, I could not do a better thing for myself and for others ever in my whole entire life. So I stayed with my practice, and then it evolved without me saying, oh, I want to do this as a career. It just evolved that I became an assistant trainer. It evolved that I went from assistant trainer to becoming a trainer. It evolved that I started teaching in different places in the world, and presenting this work to different cultures, and working with different trainers, and then eventually becoming my own trainer myself. And it evolved that I eventually started having my own training programs. Started my own training program with my husband Richard Corbet in 2002. And now we're approaching our fourth training. That's going to be starting this October. So it kept on growing without any particular big plan. It just kept on keeping on, so to speak. So I wanted to say that we love to bring Moshe into the training. We bring Amherst into the training. We have the DVDs. We play Moshe's lectures. We play Moshe giving ATM lessons. I really believe strongly that the Amherst material is the best thing that one can actually bring to themselves, because you're listening to Moshe teaching. It's the purest form of the work as far as I'm concerned. And the way in which he orchestrated the Amherst those 2 years, to me, is brilliant. It was just brilliant. It all kind of was one big conversation, like one functional integration. I absolutely love it. Even though I don't clone it, I bring my own uniqueness, my own fingerprint, my own handwriting into his lessons, and that's what he wanted. He always said, don't do me, do you. And that's the greatest gift Moshe could give us, is don't do anyone but yourself. Be unique. You're so rare, and no one is like you. And this work helps you to continue to explore yourself in such a way that there's absolutely no limit to what you can learn about yourself, about people around you, about life. So enjoy the conference. Again, sorry I can't be with you. This is the best I can do. I don't even have the right equipment. I'm videoing this with my iPhone. But it's been fun hanging with you, and have the greatest time. Have the greatest time of your life. Bye. It's me shutting off my iPhone.